All right, and welcome to the Business of Wholesaling podcast. I am your host, Drew Carrell, and I have a very, very, very special guest today. Somebody I've been quite excited about. I think actually you were going to be on a couple months ago, and one of us had something. So
Probably
I'm
me.
really
Knowing me, it was probably me.
maybe it could. I don't know. It could be either. We both travel around a lot, but what I'm excited about is something I really want to jump into today. But overall, just to kind of talk about you, Mr. Justin Colby, aside from being a prolific real estate investor, building a wonderful rental portfolio, focusing on wealth building, you're a top ranked podcast host, and not even like you might have got lucky or something. You did it twice with two different shows. And now, not now, I think you've been doing this for a while, but really focusing on coaching and educating and really specializing in taking novices in up to becoming successful investors.
Yeah.
Not to mention best-selling author, number one on Amazon. Most importantly, I would say just a personal friend of mine. And that's what I'm most excited about to have you here.
Yeah, that is the best part. That is the best part of that little highlight reel that you just said, and a great introduction. It gets a little humbling at some point, right? But thank you. The best part is my friendship with you for sure.
Yeah. And we've known each other now for a little over a year and a half, probably, when I joined Boardroom Mastermind, which you're a board member of. And yeah, we got to know each other pretty quickly, and it's been awesome. You've got so many things going on, and there's just been so much synergy between your businesses and mine and personally. And you have a little girl that's like a year older than my little girl. And I think in a couple of weeks, we're going to be together. The family's going to be together. Are you bringing the girls
in Cabo? So the downside here, and we can take it off pod, but
oh no,
our babysitter is my wife's mother, and that is the only one she trusts to watch both of our children. And so we are unfortunate to not be able to make that happen. So I will be there, but we will not be bringing our children. And I don't even know if my wife is going to go at this point.
Oh, interesting. Maybe I should let my wife know it's going to be a boys' weekend.
There you go. There you go.
There's obviously you have a lot going on and doing a lot of things, and it's very exciting. I think we were just talking pre-podcast here, going over some things, and it really just led me down to what I am recognizing most of you right now. And I think really what, having known you over this time and knowing all your accomplishments, there's been a mood change in the last couple of months. Social media, the way you've been presenting yourself kind of in general, even speaking at events, you've been talking a little bit differently. And I really noticed it, and not in a like Justin's like gaining all these followers and all this attention, but like you're just talking very differently than most influencers in the world right now. And so I'd really love to dive into that. And obviously it's coming off the back of 2024. Would you like to tell us kind of what 2024 was like for you and how that's kind of driven into how you're changing, basically how you're presenting yourself and carrying yourself as an influencer in this industry?
Would love to. Be my honor. Genuine, actually, honor. So for those that don't know me, I've been in this business now going into 20 years. So I'm on almost my 19th year, 18 and a half, right? So I'm rounding up to 20, but it's a long time. And I've done a lot, to Drew's point, and done thousands and thousands and thousands of deals, everything from your traditional wholesale deal to a fix and flip, to a burn model, to creative financing, to apartments, to storage facilities, to you name it. What came off of 2024 was my aggressiveness to really grow my business and grow my portfolio and grow my wealth, because I've always been able to make a lot of money. And making a lot of money is very cool. Do not get me wrong. But I wanted to start to accumulate a lot more wealth for holdings purposes, so I can have an exit in 10 years, just like you would with a company, but just sell off my portfolio, come into 50 million, 100 million, whatever it was, and I'm done and I'm out, right? The downside of this, and here's where I really want you guys to start to tune in, and we can take this as deep as possible. Instead of being this big, beautiful moment, an aha moment that literally put me on a trajectory of, 100 million plus in properties, which is where I was going. Ultimately, now moving forward almost an entire year, well, it has become over a $3 million losing venture. And I mean, literally out of my pocket, out of private lenders' pockets, out of the entire business model. And ultimately, the only person that's going to lose financially is me. I will not let my private lenders lose. It will not be possible. That is not a part of my DNA. One of my podcasts is called The Entrepreneur DNA. So I should talk a lot more about that part. But, there's this little thing that I think a lot of people don't have anymore, or at least they don't use, and it's called integrity. And when people give me money, I treat it like my money. And in the fact, if someone loses money with me, they're not going to lose. Now, they might need to be able to give me a little bit of runway, but they're not going to lose. And so that's what happened in 2024. And how did that happen? You know, a lot of people have looked up to me for years. I've had a platform for over 12 years. I've been educating for over 12 years, podcast, etc. Speaking on stages, best-selling author, and that's all cool, but that's all driven by pride and ego. What happened to me was driven by some pride and ego for sure, but also just being able to focus on two fundamentals: inspect what you expect and trust but verify. And there's a lot, because I can't go over an entire year worth of my business in this 45 to an hour window. But ultimately, if I would have slowed down a little bit more to be able to verify what I trusted, to be able to slow down to inspect what I'm expecting in the result, I wouldn't have found myself in this predicament. And I know that sounds overly simple, but it is that simple. And there's a lot of principles and lessons that go into this, such as just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because I could go buy $100 million in assets in 12 to 36 months doesn't mean I should have gone and done it.
So you were in a position in 2024 and probably even prior to that where you had the investors, like it wasn't like raising capital was super hard for you. You were able to do that, and you had deal flow. So you had the accelerant in front of you. And so I guess a part of what the lesson comes into is like you were just all gas, and like there was nothing impeding that. So had a lot of expectations, and a lot of things were lining up for you because of your 20 years in business. So I guess my question would be, what were you not inspecting? Was it people? Was it team? Was it, I guess I'm not sure the best way to ask that question.
Kind of all of it. And so what I mean by that is there's a little fable, if you will, or a story that has been told a lot, and some people have heard it, but I'll try to condense it because it's a little bit long. Two friends, they own the same size lot next to each other. Both of them are developers. Both of them are going to build 100-story apartment buildings. They both buy at the same time. Everything is exact same. They both have the same money. They both have everything. So one guy starts building, the other guy seemingly doesn't. And there's a friend of theirs that keeps passing these, lots, thinking who's going to win, who's going to build it first. And long story short, the one guy who starts building gets up to like 20 stories. The other guy is 0. 2 months later, another 10 stories. 2 months later, another 10. There's 40 stories now. The other guy still has none. So now we get to like 6 months in. Finally, the other guy builds 10 stories, but now the guy who's already at 40 is now at 50. The buddy of the two guys is like, man, Johnny's smoking Timmy, smoking him. Like Timmy must have been just on a drunken bender. Like what the hell has he been doing? So this continues, and it gets to a point where there's about 80 stories built with Johnny's and about 30 built with Timmy's. And along comes a storm, because the storm always comes. It's inevitable. It comes. The storm always comes. And the storm takes down Johnny's 80 stories to 0. And Timmy's 30 stories is still standing. So the friend of the two guys is thinking Timmy's out on a drunken bender for 6 to 8 months. But really what Timmy was doing, the moral of this said story, Timmy was building down before he built up. He was building his foundation extremely deep before he started to go up. While Johnny cared more about going up and pounding his chest and leaning into pride and ego, look what I've been able to do, and telling everyone how amazing he is, and look what Timmy's doing versus what I can do. And Johnny loses everything. So at the end of this, Johnny has 30 stories. Timmy is done in selling his units, and Johnny has a whole year of work to go because Timmy started building down before he went up. If you guys are like me and you have the ability to go fast, it doesn't mean you always should. Build down as far as you're building up.
It's so interesting because everybody's always looking for that, right? Like everybody's always looking for, once I release this, or once I hire this person, or once I have the capital, then the sky's the limit and I can go. And people always mentally get hung up on these blocks going, there's this one thing I'm missing to overcome. How do you weigh that and getting the opportunity? Because money loves speed, right? Like there is another side of this is you have to capitalize on opportunities, but how do you measure that with taking patience and building down? How do you know when your foundation is built?
So these are kind of the 4 principles that you and I were talking about a little bit more on off camera that I've now had, the past 9 months or so, I've been able to audit like what the hell actually went wrong. Like it can't just be one little thing, and it's not just one little thing. And I'm using some analogies so people can understand, but there was a lot to it. So like, for example, I had what I would call like an executive team, right? I had a general manager, I had a head of listings and property management, I have a head of construction, I had a head of TC, I had all these like top level, they were the head of the department, but I didn't help them build down. So when I was running, I would just offload it to the head of the department, but the head of the department didn't have 4 or 5 people to liquidate that responsibility to. They had to hold it. And when I run, I can run really fast. And so I just kept loading plates. The challenge I found is that I didn't do a good job as a leader helping them build down. This is why the story of building that foundation down before you build up. Because as good as they are, they can't handle as much weight as I can give them. They can't handle as much water as I can give them. And it's not because they're bad. It's because I did them the injustice of overloading their water bucket or overloading their plate. And so that's like the core principle there. And I talk about the 5 P's, right? Principles being one of them. Practices, processes, people, and profits. I'll say that again. Principles, practices, processes, people, and profits. And 3 of them are fundamental to like structure. One of them is fundamental for growth. Well, both profits and people are fundamental for growth. But if you don't have enough people for the structure, then the structure is still going to fall. This is the whole concept of being able to build down with people. There's a lot of mistakes all layered within there that I can continue to point to about proper paperwork and structuring and et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, if I didn't lean into building the right process, which I did think I had, but then I didn't also layer that down with the right people going downward, the process wasn't broken. I didn't help the people, right? Same thing with the principles. The principles of what we did in underwriting the property and getting construction workers to give us bids and walking the property with the construction workers and the principles of what we do were accurate. But I trusted but didn't verify said contractors. So back to people, right? And they screwed me, right? They would give me bids that they knew they were going to change order me to death on. They gave me a bid so they could get the job. Let's talk about practices and processes. What about practices? If we put all these together and I'm doing the right things strategically in the practices of this and the processes are right, well, then there's another layer of, again, this is where you inspect and trust but verify. And that leans into the people part. Now, profits is the last part. Profits is like understanding the profit margin, but that goes back to underwriting it correctly, but it's hard to do when the remodel bid comes back to you 50 grand short of really where it needed to be. And he knew it was going to be 50 grand short, right? So there's all these layers within these 5 principles, right? The 5 pillars, let's call them, that I could have done better. But if you had to hit it on the head with one of them, was slow the F down and dig deep so you could run faster.
You're very experienced recently in with these flips. So if you were talking to somebody who's currently doing flips, say doing 2 flips a month, and they're looking to scale up, how would you suggest they audit their current business so to be more in alignment and to like start inspecting, start building the foundation, or just verify that you're in a good spot where you should be looking to scale? Because this is back to my kind of original statement. Like, this is what most people don't want to talk about, right? Most people want to just be like, scale, baby, scale. If like there's an opportunity, buy that opportunity, like go, go, go. And that's where I think this contrarian message that you have right now, where you're openly talking about, losing $3 million last year, and how you're telling people that like you get your businesses in order, like build a healthy business and think about your lifetime. Don't think about making 100 grand next month, because it's just going to be a paper house that could be blown down.
Well, so it goes back to Tony Robbins, I believe was the first person that said it, which is, people underestimate or overestimate what they can do in a year and they underestimate what they can do in 10. So part of my answer to your question, dude, is give yourself some patience. You'll be able to get there. You don't need to do it in a year. And that's kind of the trajectory I was on, was like, I had a 36-month run. I was like, dude, I'm going fast, and I'm going to pick my head up when I'm done. Again, challenge. I had the right processes. I had the right principles. I had the right practices. I didn't build deep enough with people to fundamentally hold me running fast. So there goes my profits. So I wasn't focusing, and it wasn't necessarily doing it to get rich, because a lot of what I was trying to acquire was to build wealth. There is a difference between being rich and being wealthy, right? And so for me, it wasn't about making as much money. I had a transactional business wholesaling, and I would flip the ones that didn't actually fit the purchase for rental. but it wasn't necessarily about profits. Now, don't get me wrong, the ego and pride still came involved. A lot of people come into ego and pride based around money. My ego and pride was to be able to let everyone know, like Johnny the Builder, look how fast I can go build 100 stories. That's where my ego and pride came in. Look how fast I can go buy all this and accumulate all this wealth. And like, I can do this, watch this, anyone can do it. Well, I lost sight of it, right? And so what I would tell you to answer more directly is like, give yourself some runway. Like no one needs, so if you're out there already flipping or already accumulating rentals, don't be in overly large rush based around your own ego and pride. Do it over time, because no one's going to be pissed off if in 10 years they wake up and they have $50 million of assets or $100 million of assets. No, you may not brag in the same way someone that does it in 12 months, but someone that does it in 12 months might end up in a position I'm in, right? And that's where you don't want to be. Contractors, a simple thing that you can do that I lost track of because I trusted and verify. Make sure every single property gets 3 bids every single time, no matter what, by 3 different contractors, hell or high water. Because then when a contractor tries to short you on the rehab bid or the construction bid, you have 2 other people saying, no, this guy's way off. And then you go to the other guy and say, how could he be 30 grand or $300,000 under these other 2 that came in about the same number? Like, how's that? Okay. So that's like a simple principle. Like that is a principle to be fundamentally in your business, is no matter what, every single deal gets 3. And then you audit those 3.
And it bakes in the verification and it bakes in the inspection, because you're forcing yourself to compare everything and go, okay, I got one came in at 80, one came in at 70, and one came in at 40. I'm not believing this 40. Or now it's like, it's an obvious flag or trigger to go, okay, well, I'm going to go and ask this guy and get some references and like figure out why the hell he's quoting 40 when everybody else is way up here.
Well, even if you have a trusted contractor, let's just say you focus on one market, don't allow that person just to have runway and a big long leash just because they're trusted and you've done business. That's where I got caught. I did business with a contractor and he did really well for me. So I just started to trust him a lot more. I was like, he's always, I don't need to trust and verify. Like he's dialed in. Things happen in people's lives that we're unaware of. And I don't know what the hell happened in his life, but he decided to fuck me. That's what he decided to do. And most likely he decided to do that because other things, not because he genuinely had a distaste for me, like something else popped up. Or another flip he was working on went south and he had to make up 15 or 20 grand. So he found it in my pockets and da. And so that's why you can't, again, going back to this, like, oh, I have this contractor, he's the best. Get 2 other people to contract every single time. He doesn't need to know that. You don't need to show him how you don't trust him. But that way you can verify he's still dialed in on his numbers.
It's such a good lesson, and it's general as well, right? Like iron sharpens iron. Lack of competition breeds complacency. There was somebody I know in a hot seat in the last boardroom mastermind, and he'd fired his acquisitions manager and hired this new kid because he came highly recommended, but just hired him flat, fired the other guy. So he has one, and the acquisitions manager is the only person on the entire sales team. And so he's doing all these appointments and he's complaining about conversion rates on leads. And it was like, well, but how motivated is that guy? Like he's getting bonus 25 grand a month right now. He's cherry picking every lead that comes through the system with 0 competition. So we convinced this guy to hire another salesperson. And within a month, they increased the conversion rate by 50% because the 2 had to compete with each other, which means there was no room for complacency. There's only so much bonus to go around, and it forced them to be better. So same concept as if you find a trusted general contractor, great, but like, don't let them get complacent. Take other bids. Tell them you're taking other bids. Compare their bids with other people's. As far as I'm concerned, that's helping that contractor more than anything else, as well as helping you.
100%. So that's another principle to like rely on, is if you are going to build, have some level of healthy competition and or just continue to build down, right? And I wasn't, right? And so that's, building a business, for those of you out there, like I would encourage anyone to, have some level of volume, right? If you buy 1 rental a year, it will take you for absolute ever to get anywhere, right? Because rentals aren't passive. If you're flipping 1 home a year, and as long as you're not trying to build a business out of that and you just want to make some extra money, awesome. Then only flip 1 home a year and take that money and take the family on a great vacation. That's awesome. It's not a business. It's just an awesome hobby and fun to do. If you're looking to do anything at scale, whether you're wholesaling at scale, fix and flipping at scale, then you need to be able to find on a couple different levels things that are going to really drive it. First, lead flow. Well, you happen to be listening to the king of lead flow, Drew, right? He has all the leads you possibly could handle. The other thing was going to be sales. How are you converting said leads, right? The other thing is going to be, how are you exiting? And so the exit part is really, really important. People don't talk enough about exit when they talk about the real estate business, is because you will acquire more or contract more if you actually understand the exit game. I'll tell you a good example. Recently, in the last 45 days, the hedge funds, the institutional funds, there's about 35 of them, they came to me directly to help them find more deals. Now, what's unique about that is they don't like us investors. They like realtors. They like the formal, like normal business.
You're the
But there's not
competition.
enough. Yeah, but there's not enough inventory for them to get on the market. We're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars that they have to go spend on single family assets. And realtors can't give them enough. So they said, okay, we need to start to open up our doors a little bit. So now I have the privilege, and only me and my community, reilive.co, I encourage you guys to go there if you're interested. We have the opportunity to funnel our leads into them, and they will make offers on our leads. I don't have to go negotiate. I need to say, hey, Mr. Homeowner, you want to go sell? Great. Do you have a number you want? Great. You want 200,000? Let me go bring this to a couple of our hedge funds, and they will present offers. Pick and choose the best offer you want. I give the homeowner options now. I don't have to go negotiate and give them a low ball offer. Now, why is this important? Why I bring it up is because my exit strategies now have just increased. Not only can I wholesale it, not only can I fix and flip it or burr it, not only can I keep it for a long-term rental, I now can sell it to a hedge fund. And so the more exit options you have, the easier it is to convert the leads that you're getting from Drew or anywhere else that you're getting them. And so if you focus on that, then you're going to start to build a business. The other thing I'll say is to take a step backwards. You also need to understand, what are you trying to do in the first place? Like, you can go to Drew and drop 10 grand. And if you don't understand what you're trying to achieve, you're going to throw away 10 grand. Right. And so do you want the transactional business? Do you want more income, or do you want more wealth accumulation, or are you going to have a blend of both? Because it'll change how you're going to acquire leads, how much you're willing to spend. People, I was just speaking the other day, and someone asked me in the crowd, they said, hey, how much are you spending to go get deals? And I said, it changes, because if I'm going to get a deal to keep, I don't want to spend too much money. If I'm going to get a deal to flip, I'll spend somewhere between $5,000 to $7,500 for the deal, because I'm going to go make 40 to 50. So I don't mind spending the money. So the number changes for me. So there's a lot of principles that we could run on for hours and hours, that I really hope, if I can make a big impact on this show for those listening, that you guys reach out to me first and foremost, because I want my voice is exactly what Drew said. For a decade, I've been teaching people how to make money, and there is nothing wrong with that, I promise. But where I want my voice to really transition into is, I want you guys to also understand how to not lose it. Like, I want you guys to run a system in a process and have principles that can get you profitable, because of the people that you have, those 5 pillars I keep talking about. Because if you spend a lot of money with Drew and don't actually have a process on how to convert those leads, you're just going to throw money away. If you're going to go buy a fix and flip and you don't actually have any processes and principles in your business, then you're just going to get screwed by a contractor. Or if you don't have a good way of underwriting the deal, then you're going to misvaluate the property and you're going to go over budget, whatever the case may be, right? I want to teach people now how not to lose versus how to just make money.
It's so interesting you say that. I love how you talk about multiple exit strategies. To me, it's about increasing LTV. My entire keynote is about increase LTV and, like, don't try and compete for a cost to acquire a customer. And we know it unequivocally. Like, I can look at the data of over 15,000 investors that have come through our platform. The ones that have more dispo strategies are more successful, hands down, every single time. If you think Disney is a perfect example, right? If you go to a Disney park, you can go there on a budget. You can bring your own food. There's no, like, they don't like make you throw out your sandwiches and picnic basket when you go in. They welcome it. You can come in with your packed lunch. You can buy a really reasonable ticket. You could probably go on a couple rides that day. You can see the characters in the streets. It's amazing. But if you have a little bit more money, you can stay at the restaurants. You can book a time to go see Mickey. You can get the fast pass lines. Great. Or if money is not a problem for you, but time is more of a constraint, so think of like big celebrities or something like that. Well, there's an option for them where they can pay the $3,000 per person and get walked to the front of every single line, get fed and brought their hot dog wherever they are, and get the whole thing. Now, each of those 3 different types of people would not be at a park that didn't cater to their exact needs. The budget person would never go to a park if it's $3,000 a person. A person will never go to a budget park because it's not going to fit their needs. So Disney has the whole spectrum covered beautifully, and it is so well dialed in for each of their avatars. And so as a real estate investor, having multiple dispo strategies means you get to dial in beautifully for every lead that comes across, every deal, every appointment. You're not trying to pigeonhole them into a 60% ARV wholesale deal where you could present that offer, and if that works for them, great. But then you can also do what you're talking about, like have it's specific to you, but have a relationship with these hedge funds, get the multiple offers. Maybe you have a realtor on the team and maybe you can list it. Maybe you're great with novations or you learn novations, so you start doing some novos. To me, that's the lifeblood of a business, because the business that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins, hands down. And the only way you can do that is by working on the back end and increasing LTV.
That's exactly right. And so just because we are in a real estate show, LTV means a couple different things. You want to define your LTV?
Sure. So yeah, I'm saying lifetime value. What I'm trying to say is make the most per lead that comes in. And yes, for real estate, that means having multiple dispo strategies, which means you can serve more leads. You know, we want to talk about course creators and stuff like that. It is a little different, and we can talk about essential models,
right? Or even
very very good call out. Loan to value. Yes. Talk to me about how this has changed. Talk to me about social media really quick, because I definitely want to talk about some other things like the influence you have in your CIA model framework. Tell me, how has your tone changed? Why has it changed? And what are you looking to do differently this year when it comes to your messaging?
I want to, like I was kind of saying, I want to help people not just make money. I want to help people not lose money, which changes the tone of how I want to be talking, right? So what they need to know is I've lost money and I need to be authentic and genuine and transparent. And so what I've decided to do is, instead of wearing a mask on all the greatness, and again, as you introduced me, I have all these accolades and have done all these great things, and that's awesome. But I've lived on that pedestal for long enough that I've come to a realization. A great friend of ours, Ken Clother, kind of just said, listen, go do this and be transparent about what you went through, because that is what the people need to hear. And so now moving forward is, I hope all of you guys are following me at the Justin Colby on Instagram. That's probably the best platform. You're going to hear me talk a lot more, not just woe is me, here's my losses, but how to get through that moment, right? How to get through that, because there's no one here, whether it's Drew, myself, or anyone else, that doesn't have the scars of business. And some people get the cut and they quit. And some people get their arm chopped off and they quit. But it's another thing to be able to keep going in those moments, regardless of how big it was, because of the fortitude you have. And so things like, I want to be talking a lot more about integrity. I want to talk a lot more about the 5 P's and the pillars that I have. I want to talk a lot more about the painful side of what we do, so that I can be relatable. Because a lot of people look at us, myself, I'll speak to myself, and they think we're infallible. They think that, like, I just walk around pissing gold every day. And the people who actually know, they know it's not true. But that's the perception that comes off because of what I'm saying and how I'm framing my conversations, how I'm framing my posts. Is like, oh, here's how you make more money in business. But if everything's about making money, then it comes off as if all I'm doing is making money. Here's how you keep more money in business. Here's how you slow down. Here's how to build a foundation to be in business for 20 years, right? Now, I got caught with a haymaker 18 years into my career, got caught. And I don't blame the contractor. I can, and I talk about it, but I blame myself. I take ownership because I didn't slow down. I didn't inspect, trust, and verify. I didn't keep the principles and processes to what I know need to be done. And I didn't get enough people to build deep enough so I can keep building up. And so that isn't his problem, it's my problem. Because if I would have slowed down to do such things, likely I would still be running. I would just be doing it a lot slower. Right now, I'm having to go and fix all of these problems, which doesn't allow me to run. So my voice now, what you are going to see is not a woe is Justin, oh, feel bad for me. Fuck no. Hopefully it's inspiring to you guys that, like, oh man, I lost some money too. Okay, let me see what Justin can say so I don't do that again. Or man, my 2024 was rough, or 2023 or 2025 was rough. Let me listen to what Justin went through to see if I can steal some golden nuggets out of those challenges. That's what I want. Again, I want to be a tip of the spear for you guys. I want to go through the shit for an upside. The upside is me helping you not have to go through the shit, right? And so that's what you guys are going to hear from me on my podcast, on my social media, Like I'm literally, me and Drew, you and I were talking about, like, I want to go do a 4 to 6 week course, if you will, or a boot camp or something for like 4 to 6 weeks. I want to bring on 4 to 6 contractors. I know, we trust them, we know them. I want them to show exactly what people should be doing. I want a flip side of it. What makes us as the consumer a bad client for a contractor? How can we change? What are the things that we need to be doing differently so the contractor can do their job efficiently, effectively, and on the right price point and on time, right? Like, so I'm going to be doing that because in large part, that's where my big downside was, is I took advantage of the contractor. So let me go expose the right way to do that, which isn't sexy and doesn't talk about how you can do a $50,000 flip, but it's the fundamental part that's going to help people make a $50,000 flip.
And I think that that's what I'm so attracted to right now, is the not sexy part of it. And because it's like, it's nauseating listening to people talk about like how to make 10 grand a month or 100 grand a month, but nobody actually wants to talk about the work that's involved to get there. Like it takes 20 years to become an overnight success. Like, let's talk about the 20 years it takes. Let's not talk about the Lambos and jets, because as far as I'm concerned, that is a positive byproduct of falling in love with process. And if people can fall in love with that 20-year process, then those are the people that can become successful because they're in love with it, which means, because the only failure is giving up. And so if you can be in love with it and willing to overcome huge struggles, bad years like you just had, but like you're obviously still in love with it, or you wouldn't be fighting so hard to like overcome this and make this a positive and figure out what the next chapter is. You're not going, I need to make my 3 million back. Although of course, you're going to do that. You're like, okay, what's the next step of this process? What did I have to learn from this experience? Not how is this going to define me? And I think that's just a beautiful thing.
How does it make me better? That's how I'm going into this. How does this moment make me a better human, make me a better business owner, make me a better boss, make me a better leader, make me a better friend, make me a better husband and father? Like, how does it make me better? Because, maybe not all of you are godly people, but I look at this as, this is happening for me. God is challenging me to step up into a place that I'm not there yet. And he said, I need to get you there. And the fastest way to get you there is to tear you down, to show you the work it's going to take to get there. And when I do that, you're going to get there. And so trust me, I'm not like overly thankful I'm in this scenario, but I'm thankful because it'll make me better. It will slow me down. I will become a better version or the best version of myself by going through it, because I just think differently. It's just different, right? When you're going through something like this. So to me, again, it's for me, not to me. And there's no woe is Justin, none of that, dude. This is a moment that I get to lean into helping you guys not make the mistake and be the tip of the spear and say, fuck, okay, well, at least I can help others, right? And if I can help enough others, then everyone's going to be better off for it.
I want to rewind even further back and bring us up to present. Back in 2008, you were sleeping on couches. Since in that time, you've done over 3,000 transactions, Zeals, whether it's flips or wholesales or whatever it might be, and been a part of over $100 million worth of transactions. From sleeping on the couch until now, tell me about what are some of the most pivotal life and business experiences and how they shaped your mindset. I guess I'm more looking for, what mindset changes did you have to go through from sleeping on a couch to being that successful in real estate investing?
Yeah, so I think it's funny to ask that, because even right now I'm having a real-time modification to my mindset, like real time, right? And the one thing I would tell you is all of us go through these modifications or adaptations or iterations, all these words, right? Of mindset and who you are and what it's going to take and what you even want. I'm in the midst of an adaptation or a modification of what it takes. I'll tell you, the first thing you need to understand is there's 5 more basic fundamental principles, right? Which will be, you have to understand what you want and who you need to be to get it. So do that first. Understand what you want and who do you need to be to get the thing that you want. Because it's fine to just say, I want $1 million, but that's so vague. You don't even know the person you need to be to go get the $1 million. That's fine to say, I want to be a successful real estate investor, but you don't even know, define successful. Because successful could be doing 3 deals a month, making 50 grand a month in your pocket, no cost, no operational cost, no payroll, but you're making 50 grand a month. For a lot of people on this planet, that is, you are a 1% of the 1%. So you need to define that. What do you want? And then what is it going to take to get it? Number 2, get going. This is the problem I never had. I can go. As you guys just heard, 2024, I was going. So getting going is not my problem, that's for sure. But for a lot of people, it is. They get nervous, they get scared. What if I fail? Fear creeps in. Action is the friction for them, right? And so you got to take action. Then you got to commit to this. So you got to be able to commit to what you want, right? So if you can commit to it and give yourself enough runway in that commission, in committing to it, then between these first three, there's two more, but between these first three, you're going to win. You decided what you want and who you need to be. You committed to it, and now you're taking action. The fourth basic principle that I find, and I've run all five of these by almost all my guests on my podcast, from Sir Hant to Grant Cardone to everybody. Everyone basically agrees or says it in a different way. But the fourth one is you're going to be extremely uncomfortable along this entire trajectory. Now, I know that's been said a million times, and, be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's generic. I get it. It is true, but I'll say it in a different way. Every time you reach a level you've never been there, it's going to be a new level. And as adults, we've found some way to get scared, get uncomfortable, and not keep going because we're at a new level, right? But as children, we would fall down trying to walk 400,000 times a day, but we kept getting up. We would fall off our bike and skin our knee or our elbows, but we kept getting up. We would borderline drown when we were trying to learn how to swim, but we kept swimming. So somehow in our adult world, we now get scared and fearful and clam up and stop going. But as a child, all these like borderline life-ending things could be happening, and we just kept going. Being uncomfortable is the only way it's going to, there's no other option, because every time you do one more deal than you did last month, you are now lifting your level of experience, and you've never been at that level yet, right? So again, I'll reframe it for you, but that's the reality. And number 5 is probably the most important. You need to remove all of your time expectation on achieving your result, all of it. And again, I say that to you now, looking backwards, I didn't even adhere to one of my 5 basic rules because I was running so fast and I wanted to achieve such greatness in 36 months. I didn't give myself just enough runway to just go achieve it over time instead of putting a time frame on it. And if I would have just said, I'm going to go and not have a time frame on what to achieve over 36 months, again, I likely would not have found myself in this scenario, because I would have gotten back, again, I'm talking a lot, but I would have gotten back to the practices, the principles, the people, the profit, and the procedures. And I would have leaned into that. But I was going fast because I wanted to get this done and show everyone, look at me. This is where the pride and ego comes in. I'm keeping everything kind of full circle because look at me. Look what Justin Colby was able to do. Well, now look at Justin Colby. Now look at what I'm saying. And fucking listen to me now, because it's not about pride and ego. It's about shedding the pride and ego and being authentic with you guys. Do it more of what I say today than what I said last year.
I love the principle 4 there, the being uncomfortable throughout the process. One of the most interesting analogies that I've thought of in the last year is like look at life. Like if you want to look for truth, like you just like look in nature, like it's pretty easy, right? If you're not growing, you're dying, right? That's true in nature. You go look at a plant, it's either growing or dying. We always think that we're not ready for this next chapter in our life, or we're not qualified to be doing the next thing. Like, I've never flipped a house. How am I ever going to flip a house? I'm not qualified to flip a house. If you're at the beginning, or maybe it's you do 2 a month. How could I ever do 10 a month? I'm not qualified to do that. I don't even know what the operations would look like. For any parents listening who remembers when your wife, I can only speak as a father, of course, when your wife has had the baby and you're in the hospital and there's a lot going on, there's all kinds of emotion, but like you're in a hospital and there's nurses and there's doctors and everything is like kind of Gucci and like you're kind of excited. And then like, if anybody remembers, I remember this so definingly in my life, clipping the car seat into the car and closing the door and like stepping into the driver's seat and turning on the engine and looking in the rearview mirror and going, oh, I am not qualified for who is going to look after this child, let alone who I have to drive this through this crazy city of murderous drivers. And like, I'm not qualified for this. Like, I need to call a professional driver, or like, and what are we going to do when we get home? And like, you are not qualified by our intellectual sense to be doing the next stage in your life. But nature knows you're ready for it, or nature wouldn't put the opportunity in front of you and think if you're spiritual, like God would not allow you an opportunity if you weren't meant to take the next step into it. And it might be to take a step into it and eat it because there's a lesson to learn, but we're never qualified for the next step in our life. And that means that we are going to sit in discomfort. And if we're going to be constantly growing, then we are going to constantly be in discomfort. So I love that you bring that up. Second is the time frame. How do you measure setting goals without time frames? And I guess I'm imposing that you don't put time frames on them, but kind of given this lesson, and I'm in the heart of this myself. We've accomplished so much with our company, and we have a lot of big things coming up for us, and having to let go of the time expectation was the best thing I ever friggin' did. But then I also go like, okay, Justin, but what about when we're on 90.io and we're setting rocks for the teams? Like, how do you measure that? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I don't think I'm suggesting not to make goals, because you got to shoot for something, right? I mean, I think that's just the fact. Like, you got to shoot for something. But I would also argue you can't be so intent on the goal that you forget the other 5 P's, right? And you might have to slow down at times, right? And to recalibrate. The reason why 90.io or EOS is so great is it forces you to slow down to look at the results that you're getting, and it forces you to audit what is going right and what is going wrong, and then it allows you to recalibrate. And so I'm not saying don't shoot a goal, but don't be so overly concerned with the goal that it changes your ability or eliminates your ability to really focus on the fundamentals of building deep so you can get to your goal. Because otherwise, as you are hearing from me, you can blow your goal all the way up and it sucks, right? And so the brilliance between that, the EOS and the 90.io, like, it forces you to take accountability of what you've done so far. And if you are not exactly what needs to be done by building deep, which is the principles and the practices and the procedures, then the brilliance of those programs is it forces you to go back and recalibrate and redo, right? Because then you're still off. And so by next 90 days, you got to make sure you can get there. Yeah, shoot a goal. You have to shoot a goal. Just make sure your goal is, to some extent, there's always this big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay, cool. But like, throw that one out there, but make it achievable, right? So if you're just getting started and you're trying to get your first deal, then your only goal is to get your first deal. There's nothing more. There's not another one. And by when, as fast as you fucking can. That is the answer. Not in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 6 months. As fast as you can. Now you get your first deal done. Now you might say, hey, I want to go get another one. Then you might say, hey, I want to get 2 next month. Those are goals. That is great. But if you're so intent on just the goal and not focusing on the foundational stuff, it's just a matter of time, is the best way I can say it, before shit goes wrong.
I guess what I'm hearing for me personally here is like, have a goal, have a time frame. That all makes sense. You have to do that, but you need to be so attuned to the feedback along the way and be making your adjustments and iterations. And sometimes that might mean adjusting the time frame, because that might be the right thing to do. So in your example of like setting a goal for maybe 2 deals next month, well, great. Maybe you have that first deal under contract by the 15th. So you're on track, but then that deal starts going a little sideways. Spend some time focusing on don't let the first deal get so fucked up because you're in such a hurry to get that second deal by the end of the month. Look after the first deal first and make sure it's done right. Make sure the team is doing things right. Make sure we're following process, we're following principles, we have integrity, and then continue actioning towards that second deal that month.
I mean, that's exactly it. And if you stick to all of these, now we're talking a lot about business principles, life principles, like, transaction in real estate. Real estate's not hard. Learning how to convert a deal and underwrite a deal isn't the hard part of what we do. Now, to some, it may feel that way, but that's not really the hard part, because once you learn that, you really can't really forget it. The harder part is understanding what you're trying to build. Like I brought out in the first, 5 minutes of this, like, if you just want to do one flip a year, then go do that. Right? Or if you want to do one a month, then go do that. But like, what are you trying to build? Because once you fundamentally understand the sales process and how to underwrite deals and how to raise, like, that part, while it may feel foreign and hard to you this moment, once you do it, it won't feel hard anymore. Like swimming or riding a bike or walking, right? I bring that child adult thing. Like, it's just not hard anymore. But now what are you trying to achieve by doing it? And when you can figure that out, all these fundamental things that Drew, you and I are talking about, then you need to start to implement those.
I could go so deep on that. I love that. I want to shift gears. Your book. In your book, you have this concept of CIA, credibility, influence, and authority. I thought it was so interesting through the realm of real estate investors, because in my mind, it's like real estate investors, the guy with the sign on the side of the street that goes, I'll buy your house for cash. Like, what credibility, what influence, what authority does a house flipper need? Like, aren't you all just like steel toe boots wearing dudes walking around looking for a cheap house? So, and I love, and I've heard you speak about this at an event before as well. So would you dive into CIA for me and explain why you think it's important in this industry specifically, but also in as a general sense as well? Because you've built the rest of your career around this as well. Your coaching, your podcasting, your social media, everything.
Especially with AI being here, I think the only way forward is to either lean into AI and technology and what it's going to provide, and or your personal brand. Your personal brand, or you could do both, right? Really. But for me, Justin Colby is more important than my real estate company. Very rarely are you going to be able to build a brand as a brand name that is going to be larger than the person. So there's a few companies that obviously are great examples of this. Who owns Chevrolet? No idea. Who owns Tesla? Right?
Elon, right. Very easy.
Right. Who owns Yahoo? Who owns Facebook?
Right.
Right. So it's like, so these are the points I bring up in what's important about that is you can create a brand, but if I would say, how much further can you go if the owner or the founder of that brand becomes a face? Because people fall in love with the person. So credibility, influence, and authority is incredibly valuable. Why do you think us real estate investors have testimonials of all the homeowners that we buy from? Hey, how'd the transaction go? What does that do? It bids credibility, influence, and authority. Oh, I now need to go sell it to Justin Colby's home property because of all these, testimonials, case studies, right? You run a tech company. How many case studies of all of your clients, including me, do you want on your website to show the value of credibility, influence, and authority that Leadzolo is the marketplace specialist? You want them all. I believe the personal brand will go much further than any corporate brand here in the future. Not to say corporate brand has no justification. I just believe people will want to buy into the corporate brand and use their service if they believe in the owner and the founder. That's my belief because of everything I'm saying now. Like, I don't find anything special about Tesla. In fact, I actually dislike Teslas. Hopefully you don't have one. Maybe you do. I just don't like them. I don't like automatic cars in general or electric cars because I don't like how they accelerate. It actually gets me nauseous. But people find value in Elon. The same thing, Amazon became Jeff Bezos and Amazon, right? Like, all these things happen for a reason. Who owns Coca-Cola? Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. Yeah.
Kind of.
Literally.
Really, sort of.
Yep. Literally.
Right?
That's so funny
so
that's the first name that comes up for Coke. Both of us. Yeah.
Credibility, influence, authority is really important. It's the same reason why my integrous self is going to pay back every single private lender that I have, is because I have integrity. And with that integrity, I will maintain my credibility, influence, and authority. And it takes you 20 years to build credibility, influence, and authority. And it takes you 20 seconds to rip it all down. And that's the challenge, is people can't be so self-centered and so prideful and egotistical that they're willing to take a risk, that they're not willing to rebuild their credibility and influence and authority, and they let it get ruined. And then it's a tough go. And there's plenty of people in the space that you and I were talking about previously that are getting hit big time on their credibility in the space. They're going to learn a very hard lesson. Hopefully they can bounce back. But to rebuild your credibility and influence and authority in any space, I don't care what vertical it is, it takes you 20 years to build, right? And it takes you 20 seconds to break it. And so you just got to do the right thing. Even when you lose money in the way I lost money in 2024, the right thing, the integrous thing, the way that it continues my credibility, influence, and authority is to be able to do right by everyone who lost money in my world. And that will continue my credibility.
Absolutely. Like, obviously I have a very biased opinion of you. We have a relationship. I don't do investing, but I would say, yeah, I'm more drawn to your content now, because you're just so integral. You're so transparent. And yeah, it definitely builds on your authority and credibility in my mind as I watch your stuff. So that's awesome. Two things before I want to talk about REI Live. One would be, you've mentored thousands of people between your programs, your podcasts, and everything like that. What do you see as like brand new people looking to do their first deal? I'm assuming you teach people to do like a wholesale deal before you teach them to go flip. I could be wrong about that. With the thousands of people you've mentored, for very beginner people looking to do their very first deal, what do you see as like the one or two most common mistakes they're making? And I know, like, we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about building deep and stuff like that, but like really, really practically for the person who's like looking at you and I right now with a spreadsheet and a pen and paper and haven't done a deal, what is a warning you would give them not to get too wrapped up in?
There's so many. So what I find in the newbie space, because I typically train more newbies in my world at REI Live and in historically, there's a lot of things. One, people want to like overly educate. They become lifelong students. They don't become lifelong practitioners, right? And that's a challenge, right? Because they want to make sure they're doing it right. So they get caught up in this. I want to watch every video, buy everyone's course, hire every coach, do all these things. But man, when it comes to me doing it, I don't know. Let me just make sure. Right? And so they become these lifelong students. And as an educator, sure, that provides some value because that means they're paying people like myself to do it. But if they're not actually doing deals, then that's not a good thing either, right? This is where we could get into the REI Live conversation. So that's one mistake, right? Like, don't overly educate. This business really genuinely is not that difficult, right? The X's and O's you can find on YouTube, genuinely, right? You can find on YouTube. Now, does that help you go get a deal? Probably not, because it'd be the same thing as a professor handing you the textbook saying, here's all the answers, and just show up to the test and ace the test. Like, not quite practical, right? Like, yeah, you have the answers, but then you got to go still take the test, or a coach giving you the playbook and you study the playbook, but then you got to go play the game, and it's not really, it's kind of apples and oranges. So don't get overly educated to the point of paralysis, analysis by paralysis, right? Type of idea. The other thing is in alignment with this. Like, if you don't just start going, then you won't get going. So what I try to help people is like, start making calls, mess them up, be okay with it. Like, just get going. Otherwise, you are going to be stuck, right? And then life gets in the way. And because it's uncomfortable, you start to prioritize other things. And then those priorities take over your life. And then you never got going, right? The biggest thing I feel that is the biggest challenge is people's need to be perfect to get going first. So they don't get going. They need to know exactly how to comp. They know exactly how to underwrite the deal for construction. They know exactly what the ARV is. No. Get close enough. Be around the right numbers. Make the damn call. And these reasons are why I did create REI Live. So REI Live is a community that I'm not charging someone 10, 15, 20 grand for coaching. I want to do deals with people. We split all deals 50-50, and I do it with them. So 5 days a week, we get to be on Zoom just like this, and we are calling homeowners, negotiating homeowners. We are doing deals live. REILive.co. It's as cheap as $97. REILive.co, $97, 5 calls a month. You are literally doing deals with me, right? Because I've found that is removing the number one, in my opinion, biggest challenge is people are scared because they want to get it right out of the gate and be perfect, and they're not certain if they're perfect. They don't have the certainty. So it's my job to create certainty and confidence. So finally they can flee the nest, do it themselves, and do a deal a day because I've been able to do it with them. I'm one of those individuals, when a professor or teacher was talking at me, I would zone out. I wouldn't listen. It'd go in one ear out the other. I'd look at my phone. But when I was in science class and we had to go do the actual project with the professor saying, okay, now pour in this chemical and this chemical, or whatever the thing was, man, I learned. I was a part of it. I was doing it with them, right? So I said, I'm just going to go recreate the best way I learn, which is do it with people, do it with the expert or professor. And that's what REILive.co is all about, is doing it with me.
So REILive.co is a workshop program, essentially, is the way I'm interpreting this. So every month, 5 calls a month, you're coming in.
5 calls a week.
A week. Oh my gosh.
A week. Every day, Monday through Friday, we have a call that I'm calling homeowners. I'm negotiating deals. I'm making offers with the members every day.
That's incredible. I can't think of any other better value or education that's out there, because to your point, you can sit and watch as many YouTube videos as you want, but you're not getting perfect action beats an imperfect plan every single time. And so you're facilitating an area where people can come and take action risk-free, because what's going to happen? Oh, they're going to get on a call with somebody, not know what to say. You're right there and can help them with it. You're going to get on a call with somebody and not know how to make an offer. You're going to be like, well, I happen to be buying in that market. This is what I'd pay you for that, or this is what the assignment fee would be on that if you can get them to this number. And so you're going to hold their hand and overcome the analysis paralysis barrier and just get them into action to build confidence, which then builds competence and allows them to actually become successful. I think that's brilliant.
So that question was dead on. I'm trying to solve for the biggest challenge, was this people's issue with being imperfect.
Yes.
Who gives a shit? Get close enough. Get going. Because over time, I will help you build certainty and confidence, and then you can have your perfect plan of how to attack it.
I really want to dig deep into your podcasting and whatnot, but I think we should do another episode on that because there's a lot of cool stuff there. So let's end this with, where is the best place for somebody to go learn about REI Live? Like just go to the website. Do you do a webinar, or?
Go to reilive.co. You can learn more about it. But actually, what would be interesting, just why don't you guys reach out to me on Instagram, the Justin Colby. Say, hey, I heard you on Drew's podcast. Would love to talk to you more about where I'm at in my business. And it is just me. There's no bots and all that nonsense on Instagram. I will answer your information. But reach out, the Justin Colby on Instagram, and just let me know you heard me on the podcast, and happy to chat and figure out if REI Live is the right community.
I think that's great. And I think anybody who's following me, I'm obviously following Justin, so he should be easy to find. Yeah, I think I'm going to try and lock you down for another podcast because I really want to talk about, like, you've spoken to Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez, Russell Brunson, Dean Graziosi, on and on and on. Like, these are people tangential to this industry. And I would really love to hear like what you've picked up from them in terms of mental models and all the rest, and let alone your growing influence. I think, we can talk about real estate all day long. I think one of the most admirable things that you've done with your brand is really just grow your influence. And I really want to dive deep into that because, to your point, a personal brand, Gary Vee's been barking about this for like 20 years. It's just so funny, eh? But I think the personal brand is really what people should be focused on. So let's hold that, and we'll record another podcast in the future on that.
I love it. Let's let it rip.
Cool. With that, everybody, go follow Justin Colby on Instagram and send him a message and ask him about REI Live, and get your asses off the couch. If you haven't done a deal, go do a deal this month with Justin. $97. What the hell else are you going to spend it on? Thanks, brother. I appreciate having you on.